Dream Team? It's your boy Neal back with another reaction video, guys. How Sweden is destroyed by the immigration crisis. What is going on in Sweden? We finna find out. Before we find out, make sure y'all subscribe, ring notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. What we got?
Violent clashes. Sweden's gang wars in a series of explosions linked to a gang war.
Oh my god.
Det här är en svår tid för Sverige.
Oh my
Jag kan inte nog understryka hur allvarligt läget är.
What the F was happening in that car park, dog? Were they lighting every car on fire? Oh my lord.
Jag kan inte nog understryka hur allvarligt läget är. Sverige har aldrig förr sett något liknande. Inget annat land i Europa ser något liknande.
Less than a decade ago, Sweden had one of the lowest levels of gun crime in Europe. Now, they're the second highest. In Stockholm, gun violence is roughly 30.
Less than a year ago had one of the lowest you're telling me in under a year they went from one of the lowest to the second highest in Europe? How?
Times that of London. The country is engulfed.
How much
Stockholm,
times?
gun violence is roughly 30 times that of London. The country is engulfed in a gang war, which is almost entirely run by people with a migration background. Sweden's famed welfare state and its lax asylum laws has made it a popular destination for immigrants. Since the 2000s, they've had a steady high number of new arrivals. But in 2015, it peaked at over 160,000. Of these non-Western immigrants.
God dang, bro. It must have been people writing saying, hey, come to Sweden. Sweden is the place to go. Hey, Sweden. Jesus, a graph to soar like that in immigration is crazy, dog, because it was like up and down, up, and then the graph just shot straight to the top.
Immigrants, nearly half are unemployed. They are also 9 times more dependent on government welfare. They live predominantly in poor suburbs and are poorly integrated in Swedish society. This is where armed gangs recruit their members.
Explosions.
Shooting, gang crime that's risen to unprecedented levels.
This is the rise and fall of Sweden with hindsight.
This is crazy.
It's worth mentioning that Sweden's gun crimes are still far below that of the United States.
I feel like almost everybody far below that of the United States because we're in a country where we have more guns than people, and when you got more guns than people, you gonna have more gun crimes than most other countries. Now I'm not sure if we're at the top or if it's a lot of other countries ahead of us. But I feel like as far as a lot of the developed nations in the world, we're near the top. Because we just got way too many guns. We got way too many guns over here. But I don't know how it is in a lot of other countries. But I just know America has a serious gun issue. And I don't know how to fix it. I think there needs to be stricter gun laws. But I couldn't tell you exactly how to fix it.
It's worth mentioning that Sweden's gun crimes are still far below that of the United States. They have an average GDP per capita of $60,000, making them one of the richest countries on earth. Their life expectancy is 83 years, and they have some of the best healthcare and education in the entire world. Sweden ranks at the top of the charts in many respects. But when it comes to migration, how well immigrants integrate, and how productive they become in society, Sweden is doing very poorly. I'm going to dive into that topic, but first, it's important to shatter the biggest misconception about Sweden. They're often regarded as a social democratic utopia, some kind of third way between capitalism and socialism. And people believe that nations can achieve similar social outcomes by expanding their size of the government, but that would be a misreading of history. Their famous welfare state that's taking such great care of the old, the sick, the unemployed, and a shocking high number of refugees is only a few decades old. Sweden became rich and successful before they adopted their comprehensive welfare system. In the 1870s, their economy was far below Northern and Western Europe, and their average GDP per capita was half that of Great Britain. Three-quarters of their population lived off farming, which was an incredibly tough existence in this semi-Arctic environment. They developed a strong work ethic with an emphasis on hard work, individual responsibility, and family values. When the world began to industrialize, Sweden became the fastest growing economy in the world. Swedes were trustworthy, hardworking, and responsible. They remained neutral during both world wars and developed a much more moderate version of today's welfare state. Sweden's rise to prosperity was characterized by free market policies and limited state involvement. It wasn't until the 1960s that they underwent more drastic reforms to their welfare system. The concept folkhem, meaning people's home, gained popularity. It describes Sweden as a family, with citizens being expected to take care of each other like siblings. This philosophy partly explains Sweden's embrace of refugees. Today, their welfare state provides citizens, native or immigrant, with incredible benefits. When a child is born or adopted, each parent is entitled to 240 days of parental leave.
I mean, Sweden, bro, it just sounds like they came from absolute incredible beginnings. They already had their values in place before it seemed like the world started, the industrial age started, and the world started modernizing. And when that happened, they just absolutely blew up, but they were already trustworthy. They already built up an incredible work ethic. They were already awesome and had an incredible, what is it called? Responsibility within themselves. You feel me? Incredible sense of responsibility within themselves. I'll say that. And it just sounds like it's been absolutely amazing. I love the parent leave, paternity and paternity leave, dog. I don't know why we can't get that. I would go get a job just so I can get that. You feel me? But that's incredible because you should be able to spend so much time at home with your child before you have to go back to work. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Each parent is entitled to 240 days of parental leave.
Each parent, not just 240 to split between them, not just moms get 240. Each parent gets to spend about 2/3 of a year. 2/3 of a year after they have it. That's awesome.
A married retired couple receives payments that almost equal their pre-retirement income. Healthcare and education are mostly free and are amongst the best in the world. The state is very generous, but this needs to be financed through taxes. In 1950, the personal income tax was 21%. By 1995, it was raised to 52%.
Oh my God!
So how did all these changes affect the economy?
So like, income tax. Y'all, I need help explaining that. So do y'all get taxed, like when y'all get paid, like 50% of your check gets taken? Like 50% of the money goes straight to the government, or how does it work? I need y'all help me in the comment section on that one, because I feel like my simple brain and I could misunderstand it and think that just like 50% of your check going straight to the government to do like give you the free healthcare, to give you the free education, to make sure when you old and retired that you still getting basically the same amount you was making when you was working, to give you the 240 days of sick leave. I mean, of maternity and paternity leave, to give you all of these things. Does that mean that you have to pay 50% of your check? Or taxes claiming that to take care of all these things? Let me know in the comment section, please.
This is their GDP growth. In this period, between 1968 and 1975, most drastic welfare reforms took place. They suffered quite a bit during the 80s, and again during the 90s. They were the 4th richest country in 1975 and the 14th in 1993. The employment rate hasn't improved that much. In 2014, it was only slightly higher than 3 decades earlier. Inequality in 2013 was about the same as in 1950. Let that sink in for a moment. The welfare state brought a lot of good, but it failed to improve a lot of other things that, granted, were already exceptionally good. But Sweden became rich, employed, and equal before the introduction of big government. The nation developed a vision of Sweden functioning as a family, an inclusive and equal society, and that was extended to refugees. In 1987,
the way he did that drug, that doom, sound like it's finna get bad. Now he finna get to the bad.
Percent of the population were non-EU migrants. In 2013, this was already at 12%. And something curious was happening when these migrants moved to Sweden. One study shows that a group of immigrants who fled Saddam Hussein's Iraq in the 1980s and 90s were 2.3 times as likely to have a higher education as a native Swede. But once in Sweden, only 18% of them were employed. They're highly educated and from the upper class, so why aren't they working? In 2004, when the Swedish economy was performing strongly, one study showed the average income of Iranian immigrants was 65% that of a native Swede, whereas similar Iranian immigrants in the United States earned 136% compared to native-born residents.
You say what now? You say they found a way to make more than us? Well, I'm not mad about that. You know, but my thing is, you don't get to choose where you're born in this world. So I feel like some people are just born in luckier circumstances than other people. And so I'm not mad about people who leave their country for better opportunities or a better life to go somewhere else. No, whether that country be, no matter where that country be, you know what I'm saying? Whether that country be somewhere in Europe, whether that country be the United States, somewhere in the North America, so wherever. Like, I'm not mad about people wanting to leave their country for a better life. I understand the plausibility of it. At some point, one country can't support that many people. There's not enough jobs for that many people. There's not, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not mad because, like, if you're born in just somewhere awful, you just have the worst luck. I feel like you should be able to go anywhere and start over and have fresh new opportunities for you because you didn't choose to be born somewhere awful. I feel like it's not fair for you to be born somewhere awful and then the rest of the world say you can't come here. You have to stay in your awful place. But like I said, in saying that, I also understand that, yeah, countries can't, you can only do so much, you can only bring in so much people before you just not enough jobs before everything. And when there's not enough jobs, people are going to turn to crime. People are going to turn to different things that put stress on the country. And so it's different. I can't remember what the show's called. And while the idea sounded awful, at the same time the idea made sense. Was it called The Island or something? I'm not sure. It's where basically, like, you had to test to get into this, like, paradise. Everybody was kind of just living in poverty, but then, like, once you hit a certain age or something, you got to take the test to go live in this paradise. And if you pass, you got to live in the paradise, and if you fail, you have to go back to poverty. In fair speaking terms, I guess it gives everybody an opportunity to be able to go live in the paradise. You feel me? So while the idea might have been awful, at the same time, the idea was, I was like, well, that, like, kind of makes sense. Like, you... It get, now, it was in the show, of course, there was corruption and all of that, of course. So at the end of the day, it wasn't fair because it was a corrupt system. And but the idea of it, I'm like, it gave a fair, the idea of it was supposed to give a fair opportunity for everybody to go and live in this paradise. And Everybody got to take the same test. Everybody got an equal amount of chance. Was supposed to get an equal amount of chance, and whoever passed, whoever failed. And I just kid, like, that's if anybody has a better idea, I'd love to hear it. But like I said, I don't think it's fair to just tell somebody that's born in an awful place, you can't come here. Know what I'm saying? You got to stay there. So y'all talk to me in the comment section. That could be a very controversial statement, but let me know what y'all think.
Clearly, migrants in the 80s and 90s were not integrating that well. Sweden's strategy for managing new arrivals was to distribute them throughout the country. The goal was to relieve pressure on the big cities, but what they often overlooked were the local economic conditions. On top of that, about 2/3 of jobs in Sweden are filled through informal means, which is challenging if you do not speak the language and you don't have a social network. All the while, the welfare state was providing for the basic needs and requirements of these migrants. Then in the 2000s,
really?
the type of migration changed. More migrants arrived for humanitarian reasons, with a peak in 2015 when Sweden took in 163,000 refugees in only 1 year. Most of them were from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and were fleeing from conflicts at home. This led in 2011 to a staggering 20% of the Swedish population being of non-native descent.
Oh my God.
Many ended up in poor suburbs. They integrated poorly, they didn't feel as part of society, and many lived in poverty. They depended on government welfare. This was not only a burden on the state, but as it turns out, it was a breeding ground for criminal activity. The recent outbreaks of violence are between gangs that are ruled by second-generation immigrants. They recruit young teenagers from these poor neighborhoods. They were primarily involved in drug trade, but in recent years, they have infiltrated the government and even political parties, where they make money from fraud and other illicit activities. It is difficult to know exactly, but one study estimates that criminal organizations make around $500 million per year from this type of illicit activity. Over half of Swedish inmates serving long prison sentences are first-generation immigrants, and 45% of Sweden's unemployed are born outside Europe. This community has become a heavy burden on society. For most of the 2010s, the nationalist Sweden Democrats were a lone voice against immigration. They used to be a fringe party, but partly because of the migrant crisis, they have now become one of Sweden's largest political groups.
Wow.
The current Prime Minister of Sweden is breaking away from tradition. He supports tax cuts, free market policies, and economic liberalism, and he's working closely together with the Sweden Democrats. His right-wing coalition believes that the rise in gang violence is directly connected to Sweden's earlier immigration policies. His foreign minister said, "We can now see that outsideship and lack of integration in combination with trade of narcotics and organized crime is creating this very, very toxic mixture."
That's what it definitely sounds like it's getting toxic over there. Sweet, but y'all Swedes, y'all talk to me. Everybody from Sweden, or everybody that lives in Sweden, y'all talk to me, comment how y'all feel about this video. Do you think it's accurate? I mean, he's providing the numbers, so I feel like it's got to be accurate, right? Or what's going on? What is going on in Sweden, dog? And how is it? He talking about 2016, but how is it now today in 2024?
It would be short-sighted to blame this violence only on migration. Government policies aimed at integrating migrants are partly to blame, and the situation escalated in a system that went perhaps too far in accepting new arrivals. But what makes it challenging is that this issue speaks directly to a core belief of Swedish identity.
Immigration is closely linked to the country's post-war economic boom.
So there is a historic understanding or sense that given some time, and this will be something positive for Sweden.
You make sure that they get jobs, to get somewhere to live, and they get a place in Swedish society. Otherwise, you just you create a problem.
The idea of fully returning to a capitalist society is not widely supported, but that reforms are desired can be seen in Sweden's current government policy. They are implementing racist policy. They are making it harder for immigrants from outside the European Union to get social benefits. And for children that have two foreign parents, preschool is now compulsory to help them learn the Swedish language. Sweden appears to be on a road towards increasing economic liberty and incentives for work within the scope of the welfare system. Could this be the end of their famous middle ground? Please consider watching one of these.
That was a really good freaking video, dog. That was incredible. How y'all feel in Sweden? Is the problem being solved? Is it getting worse? What's going on? Is the integration getting better? Like, how much more people are still coming over? Help me in the comment section. That's all we got. Make sure y'all subscribe, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. It's your boy Neal. Out.